So the White House has kind of gone on offense here, saying that yes, they're acknowledging now this is a really big problem, that immigration is too high. But
they're even using the word crisis now.
Oh, yes, which is a pretty big admission on their part. But they're saying, well, this is the fault of Republicans. We put out a bill on day one. They said this over and over again. We put this bill out on day one, and Republicans just let it sit. They didn't do anything. We want to have more resources. The Republicans aren't giving us resources. So that's kind of their messaging, is kind of throwing this back and saying that we have ideas for ways that we want to handle this. Republicans aren't cooperating with us, therefore it's their fault.
Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle, and I'm joined today by White House reporter Haisten Willis.
Hey,
Haisten, President Biden has faced some resistance to his policy with Israel, Hamas, Gaza, from both permanent federal employees and some White House staffers who he's hired and who work for him. What kind of things are going on, and what are they doing to sort of try to manage all this?
Yeah, Biden's hearing a lot about the Israel-Hamas, Gaza conflict, both internally and externally. Externally, basically everywhere he goes right now, there are protesters following him. Even he went to Rosalind Carter's funeral in Georgia.
Right.
There are protesters at that. But basically anything he goes to, there are people following him around, chanting Genocide Joe and things like that. But right, we also had reports of people inside the administration, executive branch employees, and actually White House employees reportedly have been actually protesting and kind of sending anonymous internal memos. There's actually a one-day hunger strike going on. Most of this is anonymous. Obviously, these people, they don't want to, I guess they're afraid there would be retaliation or could lose their jobs if they came out. So there's they're doing it anonymous, so we don't know exactly how many people this is for that reason, but those are the reports that are circulating. There have been two officials that actually did resign, so we know who they are since they resigned, so they put their names out there. Most of this is anonymous. We don't really know how big it is, but it's definitely in there circulating. I think something that Biden is trying to kind of balance, and he's basically pro-Israel. Talks about when he visited Israel in 1973, really, really long time ago. He's been a supporter of Israel for a long time. But again, his party is kind of split on this, what to do or which side to support, and it's something he's definitely got to juggle going forward.
So another issue that Biden has really been dealing with is the situation at the southern border and the confrontation now with the government of Texas. And he's faced a lot of criticism from Republicans. How is the president dealing with it?
Well, in a number of different ways. He's made a few moves to be slightly more tough on the border. He started deportations of Venezuelan nationals. They announced that a few months ago. Some things that get slightly tougher, but they're also kind of doing this messaging campaign. There's things going on in Congress, negotiations, and while that's ongoing, though, there's been another record crossings that was set in, I think it was December, of 300,000. So the White House has kind of gone on offense here, saying that yes, they're acknowledging now this is a really big problem, that immigration is too high. But
they're even using the word crisis now.
Oh, yes, which is a pretty big admission on their part. But they're saying, well, this is the fault of Republicans. We put out a bill on day one. They said this over and over again. We put this bill out on day one, and Republicans just let it sit. They didn't do anything. We want to have more resources. The Republicans aren't giving us resources. So that's kind of their messaging, is kind of throwing this back and saying that we have ideas for ways that we want to handle this. Republicans aren't cooperating with us, therefore it's their fault.
And there are now these Senate negotiations going on about a possible border bill.
Right. That's their messaging, kind of, I think, in the meantime, until something happens in Congress. If something happens in Congress, from what I'm hearing, that may not happen. But that's what they're talking about for right now. And of course, the Republicans have their own criticisms. They basically say that Biden doesn't necessarily need a lot more resources or a lot more money to handle this. He could just take executive action, just as he did. He ended the Remain in Mexico policy on day one. I think that was a campaign promise type of thing to end what they call Trump's inhumane border policies. In Remain in Mexico, did a few other things. The numbers have gone way up to the point where it's become a problem for him, and so things are kind of intractable right now. But the White House line is that Republicans are to blame, basically.
Sure. Well, another area in which this is likely to be litigated is the 2024 presidential campaign.
Very much
we
so.
look to be headed toward a Biden-Trump rematch. You've written a story about how the Trump campaign hopes to flip the script on Biden on some of the attacks he's most likely to level against the former and perhaps future president.
Yeah, it's a similar type of war on words. One of Biden's top campaign things he's talking about is that democracy's on the ballot. Trump is a threat to democracy. Obviously, January 6th, they talk about that a lot.
Sure.
How scary that was. Trump won't accept election results, whatever. So Republicans are pushing back on this a little bit. They say that sometimes Biden and sometimes Democrats have their own little election denial episodes. Biden said last week he was in Virginia, and he said, "Welcome. I'm happy to be in Virginia with the real governor, Terry McAuliffe." Terry McAuliffe, of course, lost the 2021 election, tickling Youngkin for governor. So the Republicans kind of jumped on that and said, "Hey, what's going on here? Who's really the election denier? Is it Biden or is it Trump?" Obviously, Democrats would counter too that nothing that they've done has risen to the level of January 6th, but there have been some things that Republicans have put out.
He didn't storm the State House in Richmond or anything like that.
Nothing like that happened, right? But the Republican National Committee put out this video a few months ago. It's 24 minutes of Democrats, or what they say is 24 minutes of Democrats denying election results, going all the way back to the 2000 presidential race. So they have their own kind of messaging here.
Assuming Stacey Abrams made an appearance.
That was that was in there pretty heavily. Yeah, the 2000 election, George Bush won or won, I don't know. Or the 2004 election.
Selected, not elected was a big phrase they used at the time.
So highlighting those things. Like, this isn't only something that Donald Trump has done. Again, maybe not to the same level, but something they've done as well.
Constant rerun of 2016 and 2020. We'll have to wait and see what happens.
Absolutely. Get the rerun and the rematch this year.
Rerun and rematch. Thank you, Haisten. You could read Haisten and the rest of our political team's coverage at washingtonexaminer.com.